For centuries, a wild herb rescued families from hunger, delivered mineral power unmatched by spinach, and was trusted to cleanse blood and restore strength. Yet today, most would consider it a weed and walk straight past. When iron pills and anti-inflammatories fly off shelves, why did this ancient solution vanish? The answer is buried in history, and the consequences still shape our health. Here is what we forgot, and why it matters now. In kitchens across Europe, the arrival of spring once meant a return to green, and no plant was more welcome than this wild herb. Cooks reached for it as naturally as salt, tossing handfuls into bubbling pots for soups and stews. Recipes from the 1700s and the 1800s listed it alongside onions, leeks, and carrots. No special note, just another staple for the table. Nicholas Culpeper's Complete Herbal from 1653 described it as ordinary as bread, recommended for clearing winter's heaviness from the body. For peasant families, it was the first taste of fresh nutrition after months of stored roots and grains. When crisis struck, its role grew even larger. During the First World War, the British War Office launched a campaign in 1916, calling on citizens to gather nettles by the ton. The stems were stripped for fiber and spun into fabric for uniforms when cotton ran out. In the Second World War, rationing brought the herb back to the forefront, not just as a textile, but as food. Ministry of Food pamphlets urged families to gather young shoots for soup, promising strength and resilience. School children and women's groups answered the call, filling sacks with leaves for community kitchens. Wartime diaries and BBC interviews from the 1940s recall the pride of foraging, the relief of a hot bowl when rations ran thin. Nettle soup kept us going when rations failed, one forager remembered. This was not a rare or desperate measure. It was routine, woven into the rhythms of ordinary life and national survival. The herb's place at the table was never questioned. It was food, medicine, and material, all gathered for free from the nearest hedge or field. Chemical assays from the late 1800s revealed something remarkable about this humble green. Per 100 grams, its leaves contained 2 to 3 times the iron, calcium, and magnesium found in most cultivated greens. Vitamin C levels soared as high as 400 milligrams per 100 grams when fresh, a synergy that made the iron far more absorbable than in other wild plants. Nettle's mineral density was not just a scientific curiosity, it was a lifeline. Rural families, short on meat and fresh produce after winter, gathered young shoots in early spring, long before market gardens revived. These first greens did more than fill the belly. They replenished what months of root vegetables and bread had drained away. Ethnobotanical records from the 19th century describe how a bowl of nettle soup or a pot of nettle tea could lift fatigue, ease aching joints, and help recovery after illness. The timing was no accident. The harvest came at the moment when vitamin and mineral deficiencies reached their peak. In modern terms, this was a seasonal intervention, one that matched the body's needs to the plant's natural growth cycle. Later clinical trials would confirm what folk traditions already knew. In 2009, people who ate nettle as food saw their hemoglobin rise by more than 1 gram per deciliter, a result that rivaled some modern supplements. For generations, the practice was simple: gather when the shoots were young, cook them well, and let the land provide what the body lacked. No one measured milligrams or counted servings. The proof was in the renewed strength felt each spring. After the war years, the countryside itself began to change. In the push for greater yields, thousands of miles of hedgerows, once the living fences of Europe, were uprooted to make way for machines and monocrops. Fields that had bordered on wildness, dotted with nettle and other so-called weeds, were flattened and expanded. Government guidelines, such as those later issued by DEFRA, encouraged efficient land use, and what was once a patchwork of small habitats became wide, uninterrupted acreage. The herb that had thrived in the margins, along ditches, under hedges, at the edges of fields, lost its ground. Chemical weed killers arrived in the 1950s, promising cleaner, more manageable fields. Nettle, which had never been formally listed as a noxious weed in most official registers, was swept up all the same. Farmers sprayed the verges and boundaries where it grew best, not out of malice, but to keep up with new standards of tidiness and productivity. The plant's disappearance was not announced or debated. It simply happened as the old habitats vanished beneath plows and chemicals. By the 1970s, the British landscape had lost over half its hedgerows compared to the pre-war era. The wild corners that once fed families in lean times were gone, replaced by the smooth green uniformity of modern agriculture. Without its home, the herb faded from daily life. Its absence was unnoticed by a generation raised on fields without edges. Supermarkets filled with boxes promising health in every bite. By the late 1950s, breakfast tables traded wild greens for fortified cereals, each package stamped with claims of added vitamins and minerals. Food companies ran campaigns touting the reliability of their products, warning of the uncertainty of foraged plants. In this new world, health came sealed and standardized. A Nielsen survey in 1960 found that foraging, once a seasonal ritual, had dropped by 70% in just 2 decades. The old practice faded as convenience and marketing redefined what nourishment looked like. But a different kind of warning soon took hold. In 1985, a toxicology study in Germany linked high doses of concentrated nettle extracts to kidney irritation. That effect was not seen in traditional cooked dishes, but it splashed across headlines all the same. Newspapers and talk shows repeated the story, blurring the line between herbal teas and industrial extracts. Herbalists pushed back, pointing out that centuries of seasonal nettle eating had never caused such problems. Their rebuttals rarely made the front page. Fear was easier to sell than nuance. The result was a vacuum. A plant that once fed and fortified millions was now dismissed as risky or irrelevant. A weed to be avoided, not a resource to be respected. The story had changed, not because the facts had, but because the market and the message had moved on. Clinical trials in the last decade have put this forgotten herb to the test. In 2013, a randomized controlled study found patients with chronic joint pain who ate cooked nettle leaves daily reported their pain dropped by an average of 20 to 30%, results on par with some over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. Blood tests in these trials showed a safe profile at traditional food doses, with no sign of kidney or liver strain. Dr. Maria Conrad, a hematologist in Warsaw, began studying nettle after seeing her own anemia improve with springtime nettle soup. Her team's review of over a dozen studies confirmed that, when prepared as food, nettle supports hemoglobin levels and reduces fatigue without the gastrointestinal side effects seen in many iron supplements. Safety reviews from the European Food Safety Authority echo this. Cooked nettle, in amounts typical of a meal or tea, poses no risk for healthy adults. The skepticism of earlier decades is giving way to a new respect, grounded not in nostalgia, but in measurable results. The plant at the heart of this story is stinging nettle. For generations, its sting was a small price for what it gave in return. The rules for safe use are simple and time-tested. Young nettle shoots picked in early spring lose their sting completely when cooked or dried. A few minutes in boiling water or a quick sauté turns the leaves as mild as spinach, with none of the bite left behind. In kitchens from Poland to Ireland, nettle greens went straight into soups and stews, or were brewed as gentle teas. There is no need for fancy extracts or pills, just a pot and a pair of gloves. The cost is nothing but the effort to gather, compared to $20 a month for iron or anti-inflammatory supplements. Nettle grows without fertilizer, irrigation, or pesticides, thriving in places most crops cannot. The only caution is moderation. Traditional servings, a bowl of soup or a cup of tea, have always been enough. So did we really forget nettle because it was risky, or because it made health too accessible? Nettle thrives everywhere, Yet iron deficiency and chronic inflammation persist worldwide. As modern diets grow emptier, the answers we need could be growing at our feet. Health is not always hidden in laboratories or locked in pills. Sometimes it is simply waiting to be noticed again. What do you think?